All right, I'm going to call to order this March 18th, 2024 meeting of the Fairfax County Architectural Review Board. To kick off the meeting, there's a few procedural things we have to undertake. We don't have any members participating remotely, so we don't need to do a vote for audibility. However, we do need to do a vote for public comment time limitations. The ARB needs to determine how long each member of the public is able to speak during public comment periods. The public is allowed to comment after consent agenda items and after each action item as the standard ARB practice. I would entertain a motion for a member for the public comment time limitations. Yeah, no, Ms. Hannah. I need a motion from.
Needs a motion.
Bottom one on the page.
Right here. I move that each member of the public has 3 minutes to speak.
All right, that's okay. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Already at the second. I jumped the gun.
All right, seconded by Mr. Kalinsky. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Abstention? None. Motion passes. All right, and one more additional notification. The meeting is being recorded and the recording will be posted online within 10 days. I would also ask as a housekeeping member that you try to speak up as well as you can, just to make sure we can get everything recorded properly and everyone can hear you. That out of the way, we begin our meetings with the reading of the statement and purpose and intent of historic overlay districts. Since I didn't badger anybody, I will opt to read it myself. Historic overlay districts are created for the purpose of promoting the general welfare, education, economic prosperity, and recreational pleasure of the public for the perpetuation of those general areas or individual structures and premises that have been officially designated by the Board of Supervisors as having historical, cultural, architectural, or archaeological significance. Regulations within such districts are intended to protect against destruction of or encroachment upon such areas, structures, and premises, to encourage uses which will lead to their continuance, conservation, and improvement in a manner appropriate to the preservation of the cultural, social, economic, political, architectural, archaeological heritage of the county, to prevent creation of environmental influences adverse to such purposes, and to assure that new structures and uses within such districts will be in keeping with the character to be preserved. All right. That out of the way, we'll move into setting our agenda. I would look for a motion to approve the agenda. I'll point out that the agenda has been updated from the last one that we had. Due to changes that affected the meeting last Thursday. So we've added 2 new additional items, item 4 and 5, that carried over from last meeting. Other than that, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as submitted. Mr. Zellman.
Mr. Chairman, I move the ARB approve the agenda for the March 18, 2024 ARB meeting.
All right, do we have a second? Second by Mr. Burns. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right. For applicants presenting today, for those that are coming for the first time, I ask that you limit your presentation to roughly about 8 minutes for a first submission, and for a follow-up submission that's coming in, particularly following a workshop or following a prior session, try to limit it to 3 minutes. That's just the presentation. Obviously, more time is allotted for conversation with the board. Moving on from that, introduction and recognition of guests. Daniel, do we have any guests other than the applicants that are here? All right, that moves us on to our consent calendar action items. We have 1 item on the consent calendar for action. This is ARB 24 LFK 01, Chainbridge Road revision to a grading plan that is located on Chainbridge Road, McLean. This is a change to a previously approved grading plan. The applicant is proposing a revision to the grading plan because it's consent calendar item. There's a presentation. Though I do need to leave the floor open for any members of the public that will comment on this one. We only have applicants. I'm merely entertaining myself. So seeing there's no comment, I would entertain a motion on the items on the consent calendar. Ms. Murray.
Mr. Chairman, I move the ARB recommend approval of consent item ARB 24 LFK 01. Located at 1102 Chainbridge Road, McLean. Tax map 0223010057 in the Langley Fork Historic Overlay District for the proposed revision to the grading plan as submitted and presented at the March 18, 2024 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101 historic overlay districts.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Do we have a second? Seconded by Mr. Zellman. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, hearing none, the items for consent calendar are complete. Daniel will be with you following this meeting regarding any approvals that have to be passed on through DPD. And that takes us on to our items for action. The first one, and technically the first three, are all related to the same project, but we do have to make separate motions for each of them. I'll just remind everybody. This is ARB 24 ROB 02 and then 03 and then 04 relating to the 12221 Pope's Head Road demolition project and then infill and grading and then new construction. This project is associated with the demolition of existing residence, grading on that site, and then construction of a new two-story residence. Mr. John Falk represents the application. Sure. Floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you guys again. I'm John Falk. I'm here with my wife, Julie Falk. We were here for the workshop a couple months ago, for those of you that were here. And we have heard back from the archaeological survey data, which I'll show you in a moment. We took the workshop that we did last time. We took the recording, we transcribed the notes, we sent them to our architect and our engineer. We had meetings with them, went back and forth, tried to address as many of your concerns as possible. So I'm going to just try to highlight the things that have changed, or maybe that we didn't do a good job highlighting the first time around that were already addressed, but maybe not pointed out in a good manner. So the next slide shows just the house that's going to be demoed there. You can go to the next slide. The new house is basically in the same location as the original house there. It's a little bigger, obviously, but we're trying to disturb the same area. There's a large oak tree in the back that we're trying to preserve that's about 200 years old. And so there's minimal tree disruption based on keeping it in the same spot. You can go to the next slide. We did get the archaeological survey data form back. The two things I'll just highlight is the project is proposed primarily within a previously disturbed area of the property where there is little indication that the intact cultural resources might be found. And the ACB does not find need for archaeological work for our project. We can go to the next one. This was the original proposed driveway, and I know we spent a lot of time talking about the driveway being too big. If you go to the next slide, you'll see we've greatly reduced the size of it there. It came out, if you kind of toggle back and forth, you'll see the difference. But we had kind of that extra space at the bottom, which we have taken off about 10 feet to move that back to make it smaller. So we tried to address that concern that we spent a lot of time talking about last time. Go to the next one. The stormwater is kind of there at the lower part of the property, and the property generally is sloping the way that it currently does. It's at a slightly degree, but in general, the property is sloping in the way that it currently does now. You can go to the next one. This is just, you kind of already saw this, but we do have the double car garage, which was part of the wanting it to stand out different at a lower roof height. And I have, I think, another slide that will show you kind of pointing this out. So there's basically 2 steps down. This is the kids' playroom that's above the garage. There's a 2-step down, and you can see there's actually even a lower roof within the garage there to kind of have the step down. If you go to the next slide, you'll see kind of the roof difference here compared to the rest of the house, how it's quite a bit lower. Which may not have been apparent on the kind of front view, but you can see that the roof line's a lot lower there. Okay, and I think you can go through the next few slides are just kind of showing the different sides and elevations of the house, which we showed last time, but just kept those in case there was any discussion needed around those. Floor plan's good. You can just kind of keep going through those. And then I just kind of wanted to re-highlight that we're at the very edge of Roby's Mill District there on lot 32. As I believe it was Mr. Burns that you pointed out last time when I was here for the workshop, that We're at the very end of the district and we're not even visible from the district, the core of the district. If you go to the next slide, I have the photos kind of showing that the core of the district is out of view down here. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see the reverse view, which I shot a new photo that wasn't in the rain because my photo last time was in the rain. We're kind of, this road bends around and we're actually on the left, but it's kind of the way that the road bends. We're out of view there. You can go to the next slide. And then lastly, I just wanted to point out, I believe it was Mrs. Murray, who's very familiar with this area and has been on the board a while, that you mentioned last time that our house is fairly modest compared to a lot of the houses that have been approved by this board in the last 10 years. You can see kind of the stats there. All of those houses that are highlighted are within this district map. And ours is the blue one there with those particular numbers. And I took photos. I went around and stalked my neighbors a little bit. If you go through the next few, you'll see the photos of some of those houses. This is a 5-car garage house with a fairly complex roof line that's within the district that's larger than the house that we're building. You can go to the next one. This is another fairly large house that's within the district there. Go to the next one. This is my immediate neighbor who's closer into the district. Whose house was constructed. This house was 16,000 square feet, is much closer to the core of the district, very elaborate. There's a lot of garages over there on the left. I think there's 5.
There's a lot over there.
And then they have a lot of pavement as well, just to kind of point out and reference fairly excessively too, in terms of this roundabout that not even really needed for anything. There's nothing over here. This is just pavement here. And then pavement to there. So there's kind of pavement everywhere, just to point that out. And go to the next one. And this is the house that was built very recently that's on the other side of the core within the district as well. And this is visible from Pope's Head Road and actually it's kind of up at a higher elevation. You can see down there. So that's pretty much it. I just kind of highlighted some of the things that we've tried to address to meet the guidelines and the concerns that were brought up last time. So thank you for your input and would welcome any questions or.
Thank you so much. I'll ask again if there's any member of the public that has a comment on this item for application. There's not, so I would turn it over to the board members for any comments or questions.
Question, how do you want to do this?
Well, that's a good question, Elise. Yes. So because the grading plan requires a recommendation, not an approval, it has to be an independent motion. We can't say it all in lump. I mean, I don't know if it would give Daniel a heart attack if we approved item 2 and 4 together. I think it'd just be best if we did separate motions when we get to that point and just.
Perhaps we should discuss the demolition, get that out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah, that's where I was going with
Yeah.
discuss.
Oh, how you wanted to discuss it?
Yeah.
Certainly. I think that's kind of the way I would figure we do it, since we've got his time for all these applications. Let's take it piece by piece.
Okay.
Oh, any comments on the demolition? All right. How about the grading plan? We want, I think I'll talk about them, then we'll talk about motions. Rather than make it less crazy. Yes.
I'll just kick it off with the beginning of your presentation. Thank you so much for going to the county's, it's the Archaeology and Collections branch that did the research that we recommended at the workshop. So thank you for sharing the memo, and I don't have any concerns that they did not, find a need for any archaeological survey. Just as a suggestion or an idea to throw out there is that what they do note is that if there are any changes to the location of ground disturbance, that they would have an opportunity to review any changes. And I realize you're probably at maybe a higher level than 10%. You're maybe more advanced than that. But if there are changes, obviously let them know. And then the last thing is just, I don't know whether you've selected a contractor to actually perform the work, if it's part of the same, but considering whether they have a directive in the contract or the agreement that says they would stop work if they encountered anything. That might be just something that would provide some checks and balances on, whether they encounter subsurface foundation, other types of remnants, things that were not expected out there.
Yeah.
Something like that might be helpful.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Manning. Mr. Burns.
Yeah, you reduced the size of the paved area of the loop in front of the garages. But did that affect the grading plan that you showed us in the workshop?
It did not. If you, actually, that slide shows it, or,
Next slide.
yeah, either one. But so we kept the,
So the grade is
ground,
unchanged.
the grade hasn't changed. We just moved it back. Yeah.
Okay.
And part of the reason was for that is because, so I didn't point out earlier, but the ground slopes down this direction as you're going down Pope's Head Road. So you will only actually be able to see the driveway from this portion, because as you get down here, you're quite a bit lower than it. You won't actually be able to see the pavement. It's only kind of on this portion here. And we just felt like leaving the grading the same also allowed for, if we need to do, any screening or anything there, we'll have a flat area that we could do it, versus if it falls off real quickly. One, I don't want my teenagers to drive off the driveway a little too far, but also gives the opportunity, if we need to put some bushes or something there, that we have the flat area to do that. So it just seemed to me the best option.
Thank you.
Ms. Hammond.
I think it's positive that you reduced the size of the driveway. But did you reduce the height of the garage roof, or are you just illustrating that better to us?
I'm just illustrating that better. That was already quite a bit down. Yeah.
Have there been any changes to the design of the home?
No, we didn't change. We looked through all the different options with that. I think you had pointed out with like the dormers and the different things, and felt like that because our house is already mid-century modern, and looking at the other options, because of the way that this roof is in that room, it's already fairly small in terms of that playroom, because the roofs are coming down. So it's like where it's got the side of the wall comes up a little bit, and then the roof starts going this way. So to kind of push it in more, just starts to make it really
Okay.
not usable space.
I wouldn't describe your home as mid-century modern.
I was talking about my existing home. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that is actually very vernacular mid-century modern. That's a good example, which we're allowing to be torn down, but I don't think it's a beautiful example of mid-century modern, but still has a place in the narrative of vernacular. The other homes you showed, first of all, we didn't discuss this at the last workshop, so we didn't ask you to move your garage doors. But in looking at the other homes that the board have approved, all of them had the garage doors on a secondary elevation, not the primary, with the exception of that large yellow house, which had it at the primary, but it was set back significantly. So yes, I do prefer when the garage doors are not on the primary elevation. Well, here, yeah, you see they're on the side, and then there's a freestanding garage, which is, kind of in keeping with what you would see in an early 20th century home with cars, a freestanding garage. But I don't know. That's just something I noted as something I think is successful in the previous board approvals. Yeah, here you see it set back quite a bit. But I didn't come up at the workshop, so maybe that's a moot point at this point of the discussion.
Well, I think
Go ahead, Ms. Combs.
I think the difference in this case is the topography of the land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind
With
of
the drop off,
U-shaped.
there are fewer options on how to address that, because there's
Yeah, I don't know where to put it without cutting away more of the land. So yeah, that wouldn't work here. It was just something I noted.
Mr. Tillman, you look like you're gonna have your hand up.
Yeah, I think that there's probably some concerns here. I think some of my concerns are tempered by your location within the historic overlay district and the other homes that already exist within the historic overlay district, I guess I would say. I do appreciate you reducing the pavement on the driveway and illustrating about the garage. So concerns, but not significant enough probably for me.
Question.
Yes, Ms. Murray.
Are grading plans supposed to include landscaping?
If there is landscape.
Is there going to be any landscaping at all?
I mean, we'll probably put a few bushes around the front, but not anything of significance.
Okay. Just checking off a box. We can't say that we didn't ask you.
Oh, I was gonna ask if you currently have a fence, I believe.
Yep, and we're planning to keep that
Yeah, that's what I
intact.
thought.
And it matches the district in terms of the style and stuff. Okay.
I have to agree somewhat with Ms. Hammock that obviously when I looked at this and then I saw that it was still had that big red stamp, the permit set 130 on it, on the plan set, I knew that that there hadn't been changes to the actual architecture when it came back. So, and I think obviously part of this is an observation that I wish we had had a chance before it had gotten to this state to have more input on it at the workshop stage. But I also recognize that what Mr. Kalinsky and Mr. Burns have brought up, that I think site constraint wise, I don't have a good solution for how you were going to orient that garage in a way to offset it. Because I do agree with most of the other ones I'm trying, when you were showing the pictures, I was trying to recall the ones that I've been here for and what advice we gave the applicants. And each one of them, you can see little notations of things that have been proposed to try to help match what is mostly a no longer vernacular area with the other construction. And it's really focused around a singular property. And I think it might have been UC that brought up last time about what are we protecting here? And it's the mill and obviously its location and its space there. And so this part of this in my mind is it's not necessarily a district drawn well to the property itself anymore.
I think that's the key takeaway here is that it is on the edge and it's
Mhm.
not directly
Yeah.
visible.
And so I'm happy as well about the driveway reduction. I think that was one of my biggest concerns is one of the things we're going to see was a lot of asphalt. Because even if you see a big house, because you're going from a very modest house to a modest amongst your neighbors still house, I suppose. It will all just match until we get to the mill, which definitely stands itself out. And at this point, that is the one property that will continue to stand out. So I'm not bent out of shape, I suppose. That's my reaction on it, but I don't know if any other members have any other thoughts or comments to share on it.
I'm feeling more comfortable with it after seeing what its neighbors. I haven't driven the street personally.
But we're only talking about the grading plan right now.
So we're still up to the grading plan. Okay.
Yeah.
We're not talking about the architecture yet.
We seem to kind of drift right into there.
Well, I'm wondering, where are we going with this?
Yes, that's what I was wondering too.
Yes.
Do you think, I think we could probably vote on demolition.
Yeah, we can definitely do a motion on that if you all would like to.
Okay.
So I would definitely entertain a motion on first one, Mr. Zellman.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move that the ARB approve action item ARB 24 ROB 02 located at 12221 Pope's Head Road, Fairfax, tax map 0673010032 in the Roby's Mill Historic Overlay District for the proposed demolition of the existing residence as submitted and presented at the March 18th, 2024 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101 historic overlay districts.
We have a motion,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Burns. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Ms. Orr is abstaining. All right, that motion passes. All right, now we move on to the grading plan. Are there any more comments or questions on the grading plan?
Guess, quick question, would the suggestion about including a stop work or provision in the contract, would that be with a modification?
That could be made as a modification to an approval. That's part of our recommendation,
Okay,
since we're recommending approval.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just
Not approving it.
no way for staff to enforce that.
say that again, sorry.
There's no way for staff to enforce
Okay,
the contract between private parties.
so
But you can encourage and make a recommendation.
it can be on the record as a recommendation. Okay,
I just want that to be clear that there's.
Part of your motion.
I know, I was gonna have to, how am I gonna word this? Okay, I will try. If you're ready.
Yeah, I am absolutely ready.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB recommend approval of action item ARB 24 ROB 0303 located at 12221 Pope's Head Road, Fairfax, tax map 0673010032 in the Roby's Mill Historic Overlay District for the proposed grading plan as submitted and presented at the March 18th, 2024 ARB meeting, subject to the following modifications. That homeowner consider adding a stop work statement to its contract if archaeological materials are recovered during the course of grading. Upon review of the materials and with the approved modifications, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101, historic overlay districts.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Murray. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that motion carries. All right. I'll take this on to new construction. Mr. Burns, I have a feeling you have some comments. New construction? No? Oh,
We saw at the
you were just
workshop.
trying to sort out my order.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Understood, sir.
I have a housekeeping
Yes.
question. And maybe the architect spotted it. I didn't see any cut sheets for example, light fixtures. I didn't see any material colors. Were they in there? The design professionals who read these things more easily than I do?
In the workshop, we had shown like it was like a grayish color for the photo. I didn't include it here, and I didn't have a cut sheet. You're correct about that.
Unfortunately, we do really kind of need that stuff. Maybe we can do it as if Daniel can check it, but we're supposed to have specifications for your light fixtures, your garage doors, your windows. I mean, is all that stuff called out in your plans? I'm not a professional architect.
I mean, we have what we intended to have in there, but
What material would you like your windows to be?
we're just going to use standard windows. I'm not sure what.
It can be vinyl, aluminum clad wood,
Fiberglass.
Fibrex. It's also-
Fibrex,
yeah, which
fiberglass.
is like the,
And I'm asking this because all that's supposed to be in the package that's approved.
Sorry, I was not understood.
I-
Workshop or
you should have mentioned that at the workshop. Yeah, I think we would want to know if your buttons are on the inside of the glass or the outside of your glass, if they're applied or
are you talking about the cross beams?
the
Would be-
grids on your window.
Would be on the outside.
Okay, that's positive.
So I suppose it could be something that you can make a modification to a modification to the approval for, but it would require it to then come back to staff to have those submittals.
I don't feel that I could make that motion.
I know, I'm just saying that.
That's a pretty broad, yeah,
broad
motion.
that's-
Because some of the
that's,
materials is the issue. And,
I feel like-
we'd have to some way to document it and. Or
I-
do.
I felt like at the workshop, we hadn't even gotten to the details of the windows and that we were going to see a revised design at the next meeting. I was just expecting to see more revisions and
Yeah, I'm with Ms. Hammock. I expected that you would have developed this further, that there would have been a.
We have all the light fixtures and stuff like that. I honestly didn't know that we were supposed to bring that here. I would have included them all. All the light fixtures and stuff have been picked out. And they're as accurate as possible in terms of the lights over the garage are the kind that come out and shine downward. There's an overhead recessed lighting within here. And recessed from here down. So we don't have like fixtures shining forward. It's overhead down.
I wasn't at the workshop, but I know for every other applicant, we need to see the roof material, the siding material, the stone below, that they pass boards through and that it's quite a bit of show and tell. And light fixtures obviously are part of it, but we require that everyone else. I don't know why he would not. But
I mean, to me, the logic of requiring that is if you're applying it to an historic structure, but this is a new building within, and I get that it's within a historic overlay district, but
we have
there's a lot of different variety of new construction quality. I mean, just saying it's new construction, it could really vary as to what it actually looks like built.
We have requirements, and that's part of our requirements. So that level of specificity. that will detail be provided.
We've since the pandemic been more lax on people bringing in the physical samples because
Yes,
we have
yes.
these digitally, but
Yes.
we normally have the cut sheets for lighting, the reference to the actual material being used for a stone, like they might be sending us to the developer's website or give the cut sheet that they now provide. Back in the day when it was all here, we'd have rocks and 2x4s brought in or siding panels, but I mean, because everything in the plan simply says see product specs, and I don't think that's something that's been provided to us on the product spec side.
In the applicant's defense, I don't recall us specifically asking that at the workshop. And my understanding was that we were going to see a substantial revision. And then once we all were like, oh yeah, we think this is good, now we can suss out the details of materials and windows and whatnot. So that was my understanding, and perhaps that was the wrong understanding, but in the applicant's defense, I don't think we verbally spelled out, next time we see you, we want to see your materials and windows.
We don't.
I guess I would say maybe in our own defense that I thought this might be coming back again for
Workshop.
another review. And I'm the lawyer on the board, so sometimes I don't have as much to say, but every once in a while I do. You know, and my concern is always about being consistent about how we do things. And that's all that I would say to my board members is I just think we need to be consistent. And I don't think I told you, I'm not opposed to your project, but I don't know that I can vote today to approve it when I don't know what the roof material is or the siding material and not knowing that and knowing that that's what we require of others, that would be difficult for me to approve.
The other challenge we've run into in situations, even when we've had the materials provided to us, is we've had something built inconsistent with those, and without having references to what we are approving, it's difficult to then say, well, that was not what was approved, because then when staff use an application, they can actually cross-check it. So if someone says they're going to use stone or use precast, and then suddenly the design plan changes dramatically, or if a window is now a single, one frame window as opposed to a multi-pane, 6/6 window, those kinds of checks are there. I'm not sure why that didn't, one, because it is something that's on the ARB's actual bylaws for the things we were looking for typically, particularly with new construction. Those are types of materials that we want to hear about. I think perhaps similar to other members, we were expecting potentially design revisions to come back. And that kind of gets to my comment when I saw the plan set come back in. The thing that stood out to me when I first saw it was it had that permit set red stamp on the center of the drawing set. And then I saw it again. I'm like, oh, well, that seems like the exact same date we saw last time when it came into us. So I immediately like, okay, well, then nothing's changed. But that kind of leaves us in a situation of, while I think we're convinced that the house design is workable, we don't know all the components here. What that could mean is once that material is submitted, it could become something for consent calendar on our April meeting, which is getting closer and closer because of the way here. Because it sounds like based on the plans, those items exist because most of the notations on these materials say see spec sheet, see spec sheet. So, but at this point, it sounds like from what I'm hearing, folks would rather defer it to an April approval to take it as a consent action.
Is everyone on the board comfortable with the design as shown today?
I am.
I am.
I think I think Mr. Kalinsky and I were talking about in our earlier comments before we did the two actions. It's a situation of we've got a collection of houses here that, don't represent the property of the HOD, but at the same time, I think it's workable, but I think we need all the information here for us to make that recommendation. So, and Daniel, I don't think that's come in the submissions. I don't know, you're feverishly typing over there, so I'm not sure for what.
We don't have the cut sheets or any material specifications in the permit.
Okay.
Because the permit's been on hold, so we have the same plan set, that's not changed. But I don't have any specifications.
I think that's the best solution. I think hearing the board members, I don't think it would pass a vote for an approval. or with a modification. But if we deferred it, I would probably recommend those materials, as long as they're not, objectionable, they could probably be submitted for a consent calendar action. As long as you're not proposing something with giant spotlights and, single pane windows or something to that effect, which it doesn't look like from the plan set. No, I can't speak you monolithically from the board, but that seems to be the reaction I'm getting from most folks. Does that feel agreeable?
Yeah, if you could just clarify, because I had even submitted my presentation ahead of time to, I would just like to know what exact cut sheet.
Sure.
And that's,
So that I don't get.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sorry that didn't get conveyed as I'm too used to saying it at many workshops that I sit in that remind. So obviously fixtures, cut sheets for fixtures, notation.
External fixtures.
External. We don't care what's in the inside of your house. It could be one giant room. It'd be unwise, but you could do it. So usually a specification sheet like that is even going to be a page on the plan set that literally notes material information, gives the product name, the cut sheets for those things. If you've been selecting them for the external lights, for the window brands, there's a cut sheet for every type of window that's usually selected. The paint color or the color for the siding materials that you're choosing. There's a cut sheet for the roof tiles, the roof shingling, all those, same with gutter color and things like that.
there's some stone too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But each one of those would either come with a cut sheet if it's a manufactured product that the manufacturer would produce, and your designer likely has shown you if you guys are custom building your house. And the other ones, if they're like a natural material, they're usually a accessible picture or information on one where one can actually see it.
I would like to know the brand of window, if it's an Anderson or whatever. And when you say cut sheet, I actually would like to see a window drawing, section drawing. So imagine if someone has sawed the window in half vertically and horizontally. So we can see the components of the window, how it operates, the materials and the dimensions of the components. So not just a drawing of it head on like an elevation, but a section vertical and horizontal of the windows. And that is something that your window manufacturer already has, because they need to build the window. So they have that. So if you sourced your window from a manufacturer, they should be able to give that to you without having to create it just for you.
Yeah, it should be a stock thing. They should be able to hand you that they've given a lot, particularly if you're going for a typical brand.
So if we could see it on the outside of the house, you should identify what it is, what brand, style, the garage door, front door, windows, type of stone, the siding, the color of the stone, the color of the siding, the type of roof covering, assuming it's some sort of architectural shingle, which manufacturer or at the very least, which color goes with that architectural shingle. Your corner boards, are they made out of wood or are they made out of some cellular product? And all your light fixtures, because they'll be visible too.
Then it does say right here, actually, I am noting, it does say they are Anderson 200 series
That's
double hung windows. So we do know the window you're getting, but so some of that's not all here in the information. The one thing I was able to find was the windows, which obviously is something we're typically more concerned about than other things, but for your own benefit too, having that information readily available as your home's being built.
This is something you need to, your architect has specified Anderson 200 series. You need to make sure if you get that approved here, that that's what your builder is going to use. So oftentimes the builder will come and say, I've priced two different windows for you and neither one is an Anderson 200. That's so.
Thank you.
Talk to your builder and see what he's thinking. And if he has compelling reason why you need to use something other than that, then change it to that for our review.
Mr. Zalman?
I think if he's going to defer, he has to agree to defer.
That's true. If we are going to vote to defer, is that going to be agreeable?
Yeah, and it sounds like if I submit all that to Daniel ahead of time, then you guys will be able to kind of review that and.
I mean, if it's indefinitely, so if it comes in for obviously before the time for the next meeting, I think it could become a consent calendar item, which is the first one we did today. We voted on, there was no discussion on it, was approved. Mr. Jabori, who was there for that item, he's here for another workshop session, but we do encourage applicants to be there for their consent action items, just to make sure, because we can obviously always decide to discuss something. It's on there, but the assumption that staff believes this is approvable as, just a motion. But if that's all in there with the application, then the membership would have it to review and we would be able to have a decision when we sat down today, just like we would with that one.
Okay, yeah, that sounds agreeable.
All right. I would entertain a motion by a member then. Mr. Zelman.
Mr. Chairman, I move the ARB defer action item ARB 24 ROB 04 located at 12221 Pope's Head Road, Fairfax, tax map 0673010032 in the Roby's Mill Historic Overlay District is submitted and presented at the March 18th, 2024 ARB meeting. The motion to defer is due to getting more information about the materials to be used on the exterior of the residence.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Kalinsky. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
No. Yeah, we can have discussion. Yeah. All right, our next item for action is ARB 24 LOR 04 9311 Quadrangle Street Solar. This is the applicant proposing to install 12 roof mounted solar panels. Seth Bringhurst represents the application.
Thank you. Thank you for having us back. I got a lot more pictures for you to help explain what we're doing and how we plan on running the conduit. So this is with the ballast system. So that's a front view. You won't see anything on the front of the house. There's nothing, you will not see anything from the solar panels. You go to the next. That's just gives you a little bit better angle to kind of help you see how high the building goes. I mean, and you can't see any of their vents, their pipes from any view on the street. Okay, so, and their pipes and vents are going to be higher than what our panels will be sitting. Okay, go ahead and go to the next one. This is the backside view, which we couldn't see from the angle of the picture that I had before. We were kind of looking straight up, and so we couldn't see there's an opening for water runoff that runs into a gutter. We could see the gutter, but we didn't realize I wasn't sure if it was. But yeah, so the gutter is just right here, right underneath where the opening is for the roof water runoff. Go ahead and go next. That is the layout of where the panels will be. The front side is where the big vents and pipes are. And then back to the left. Okay. Again, just kind of schematics of how they would be. Go ahead and go to the next one. Closer up, kind of showing the ballast, the weighting, of the panels, and I have some examples that will be coming up. Keep going. Please keep going. Keep going. Again, example, but I think the picture actually will show a little bit better. Go ahead and, this is the front wall. Hard to see on this screen, but it was about 30 inches, if I remember right. I could see it in my picture, but now I can't see it. So it's around 30 inches though, is the height of that front wall. Okay, go ahead. This is the back wall. And yeah, this is, 27 inches is how high that back area is. Okay, and then that's the sidewall in between the neighbors. Okay. About 16 inches. This is an example of how high it would be, about 14 inches is the top of the panel. Go ahead. Just another example. Sorry, it's a little blurry, but keep going. And then we would run the conduit with the wiring from the panels to where the opening was in the back. And then the conduit sits on a, what do you call that?
Standoff.
Yeah, standoff. To keep it. And then the example, or once we come through the opening, we'll take a L turn and then come down right along the gutter, but we will match this to the siding and to the gutter color. And then we'll go inside the home or into the garage. And then once we come out, we'll have the disconnect box. This should have been slid up just a little bit over, right in the middle between the door and the garage, so that it's not behind the AC unit. Okay. That's pretty much it.
All right. Any member of the public? Nope. Comments or questions? I was not here for this last meeting, so I'm assuming members, if you have any comments or questions on this one, since you all were here for it.
I think it's a much improved presentation. I really feel like you didn't see the first one, but I have a much better understanding of what the building looks like, the site, and what you're proposing. And I'm comfortable with it. And I like that the box is lower. I think some of us were worried that it was gonna kind of stack up on top of the existing boxes. So yeah, I thank you for the quick turnaround. I think that's very.
Yeah, we got the guy out there this morning. So,
John, can you go back to the last slide? Can you zoom in down by the door? Okay. All right, so that rectangle represents the
the disconnect, yeah.
disconnect.
And it would fit in between.
There's enough room in there.
Yeah, and when the picture got sent, it somehow shifted and it was supposed to be right in the middle.
And that disconnect, the wires, the inside of the garage, and then where it comes down the gutter, it then penetrates above the door level.
This is Jared, he's operation manager.
How you guys doing? So yes, basically what we'll be doing, we'll have a disconnect right there in between the door and the garage. Inside of that disconnect, we're going to be penetrating through the backside of it. It'll go internally into the garage. And then if you can imagine internally, there'll be conduit coming around, going into our main service panel and everything. And then we'll have what's called an LB coming out of the conduit here, going into the wall. And that's how we'll get our wires from the roof down into the garage and make it all terminate in there. So basically you'll just be having some what's called EMT running up the gutter line here and then doing a 90 and then LBing right into the slot, probably right up here in this corner. And then that'll all be color matched to the house. You actually won't have those stickers there either. The red stickers you see, they're not required by code for this particular style system. So it'll be a nice clean look. We could try and keep the conduit as hidden as best possible just by running it in the gutter line.
How high is the EMT? How high is the standoff? Like, will water be able to flow underneath the
Yes.
EMT from that corner?
Yes, yes. So that'll actually be up about 2 inches. The standoffs are about 2 inches long. They're little rubber standoffs.
And you're planning if the conduit's going to come close to the edge of the opening?
Yes, yeah, we're gonna butt it right up to it. Try and keep it nice and clean.
I will say, having been involved in the design of these buildings back in the day when they came through this board, or many of us who wrote that dragon, the intent for the backside was to try to keep every bit of utility and kind of necessity on that side. And so, but there wasn't a lot of space to work with either, given how narrow each unit was.
That's definitely the struggle with townhomes, with solar, especially we have a requirement by utility to have our disconnect within 6 feet of the meter. So it makes it a little tough sometimes. with
I remember many a meeting, I don't know if you, John, do, of all the,
No, I had to recuse
oh,
myself.
you had to, that's right, you were NPS, every penetration and vent and, oh,
My issue.
yeah. So maybe this is John's first time seeing them all this way. He didn't get to see
Yeah,
it.
alley load townhouses are the most difficult to work
Yeah.
all the utilities and coordinate with.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Burns.
Yes, it's now in private ownership. It's no longer a tax thing. so
Yeah, yeah.
I can comment. The question I have is you come out the opening in the parapet, rear parapet, and they go over. Now, do you go around the gutter or do you go past the end of the gutter? I mean, how does it get, when you say it makes the 90-degree, how does that accomplish that?
So depending on what the gutter is, sometimes we're able to get right around it, which is probably what we'll be doing here. Unfortunately, we needed a boom lift to get on the back side of here. We had a 48-foot ladder out there today and we were still only able to reach the front. And it was a little bit last minute. We weren't able to coordinate a boom lift to get out there from Friday to get the exact details. However, yes, so it'll either go on the right side of the gutter and then come down and around, or it could come around here and then just go up and over the gutter.
For your purposes, I hope it just simply goes over and then down past the end of the gutter. Otherwise, you have to lots of bends to go around the gutter and back to the face of the building.
Yeah, sometimes it can feel a little challenging.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Can I ask Steve a
Yes.
question? Steve, how do you feel about that going into, I mean, that's going to be solid joists there that are, at that location. They just drill through and they put a sleeve in.
Where it enters into, just above the garage?
No,
Where the
between the
disconnect
two
is?
doors, that's all studs supporting headers and.
That's a pretty good point. You probably have like at least a triple jack there or
Yeah.
Yeah.
two jacks and a king stud to support the header and the door. Other than,
What,
That is.
the brace wall component probably has an LVL that goes all the way across, but it's,
okay, but it's still, okay.
which
I don't know, I
which ties it, which would, it'll be supported on both ends. That LVL, I can't imagine you built this garage without a continuous LVL all the way across.
Yeah.
So even though that's offering some structural support there, it's not critical. The only thing that could possibly be bearing on that is the roof load coming from way up above. So if you compromise those jack studs, I don't think you're gonna have a structural issue.
Okay,
But I mean,
okay. I know you run into this all the time.
No, actually, that's a very good question. That's not something I had thought of. I'm not an engineer. We do have our own in-house engineers that I'm sure would take into consideration. I actually presented this idea to them on Friday after Seth let us know that we'd been rejected. That was kind of the solution.
going inside the garage, is there a light switch on the latch side of that door?
Yes.
You sure? Like you go in, there's a light?
Yeah, as soon as you walk in, turn the light on.
Well, then there's gotta be at least 2 inches of
Yeah, okay, okay.
passage and most likely centered, well, perhaps off-centered, but
All right.
it's not the end of the world.
Again, another question for Steve. Are you surmising the LVL goes
All the way.
bearing wall to bearing wall?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
I don't think there's any other way you're gonna be able to design that, not under the economics of these townhomes unless you're
Yeah.
talking
No, I need
steel.
to bring those plans with me to the meeting today. They're still down in my basement, I think, rolled up in paper form. So I could have brought them, laid them out. Sometimes you gotta hold on to things when it goes through that many meetings.
Yes.
It's out of sentimentality.
But that's something you might do is ask the homeowners, do you have your original architectural drawings?
Sure.
Because that might tell you what's behind the siding.
It doesn't mean the builder built it according to the drawings.
No, but that was what was approved.
This is very true.
Please don't collapse over. So.
All right.
They collapse.
You'll
No,
maybe need a
it's
long
not-
bid.
Yeah.
Original.
Any other comments or questions from board members following the updated materials?
I mean, it'd be nice if, I mean, I understand the rush if you guys are in to get this, and this illustration is pretty foolproof for what we're doing, but I think having dimensions and notes on a drawing, calling these things out would be the ideal situation.
Yes, I concur.
We'll have another one in April coming for you, but we'll,
You've been forewarned then.
yeah.
I think if we're generous here, we won't be so generous that time.
So I can tell you that the dimension of the disconnect is going to be 7 inches wide. The dimension between the door trim and the garage trim right there is 9 inches. We do have some photos of that, I believe. Did I get them to you? I have a photo of.
I didn't
Okay.
I think the more the concern Mr. Quincy's getting at is,
We need some sort of documentation that could be then compared to what's actually being done.
Sure.
Yeah,
Miss,
I think the idea is like you guys have some good schematics of where all the panels and everything is going. I think something like that about where the conduit's gonna go as well in the future would be helpful.
Sure. Yeah, I know that they do have some plans to, once we get these through, to put a little focus in the area. So I'm sure that getting this information will be useful.
there are no other comments. I would entertain a motion one way or another on this one. To the other board members, particularly since you all discussed it at length last Thursday too. And I can't make motions.
Daniel's.
Oh, Daniel, yes.
I would just note that whoever makes any motion should strike out the term roof mounted, because this is a ballast system.
Okay.
You just simplify it. Makes it easier on our end.
If you follow one of the motions, just it's slice out roof mounted solar panels. Just say solar panels. Mr. Zellman, over the burden of the vice chair.
It's okay. Mr. Chairman, I'd move that the ARB approve action item ARB 24 LOR 04 located at 9311 Quadrangle Street, Lorton, tax map 107110A 0008 and the Lorton Laurel Hill MOA eligible area for the proposed installation of solar panels is submitted and presented at the March 18th, 2024 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of the memorandum of agreement of the Lorton Laurel Hill eligible district and zoning ordinance 3101 historic overlay districts.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Hammack. Mr. Burns,
You're going to ask for discussion, right?
I am gonna, I can tell you have discussion on this motion.
Why do we remove roof mounted? These are on the roof.
They are being weighed down by ballast, not being mounted to the roof, is my understanding.
Okay.
And I think this was the way this roof was done back in the day, I think drilling into it and mounting it
Could
was
be
not,
problematic.
would be an unwise idea, and I'm not an
Yeah,
architect.
that was discussed.
That term specifies where on the building it's located, right? Without that term, they could put it in the front yard.
Mm.
I might accept a friendly amendment of a roof.
At this, it says as submitted and presented to today's meeting. I mean, they're presenting it to be located on the roof.
Right, but we've had people come in and they're proposing solar panels in different locations.
Did you say roof
Always on the
ballasted?
roof. I don't know what would the terminology be for ballasted system on a,
So a ballasted system, the term behind ballast, right, is we're gonna have it's a non-structural attachment.
yeah, it's just weighted down.
With concrete blocks, right? You're not gonna put that on the ground, right? You do like a ground mount system.
Mr. Burns, I think Ms. Hammack has a suggestion of
Just
located
say
on the roof.
solar panels located at the roof.
Okay,
Sure.
that's fine.
So we should revise it.
Where would you be?
Make a friendly amendment to add the term
Solar panels,
solar panels located on the roof
all right,
as submitted.
we have
I will accept that amendment.
you've accepted that amendment.
Second.
Hammack, you
Yes, I second.
seconded by the seconder, so now we have a revised one with a located on the roof, to clarify.
So now we can't put them in the front yard.
Exactly.
I don't even think they have a front yard. All right, so we have a motion with a friendly amendment that's been accepted by the motion maker and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes. That takes us on to item number 5. ARB 24 LOR 05 8505 Reformatory Way Solar. Again, in Laurel Hill, MOA eligible area. This is another installation of 15 solar panels located on the roof. And our same applicants are here to present those. Gentlemen.
Perfect, yeah, and this is a very same, almost identical structure. However, this roof does have a slight slope on it. So we actually are able to attach it to the roof. Okay.
Excuse me, they're mounted.
Yep, so this is, yeah, mounted to the roof. You can go to the next one. Maddox, go ahead and go to the next. Nothing on the front, again, go ahead. Giving you another profile to look at, go ahead. It's the second one in, the red one, go ahead. Pretty much identical to what we looked at with the other one. And so we'll be doing the exact same thing. Coming through the opening at the top and then turning 90 degrees and then coming down right along the gutter line and then into the house and then disconnect between the door and the garage door. Okay, go ahead and go to the next. I can't remember the name of what's it called? How we attach?
So since this is pitched, looks like this is our new racking, which are the NXT mounts. And I believe it's rolled roof up there. So these have a, like a self-adhering tape underneath. Basically, it's a flashless system. It's a newer style attachment that's been out probably about 3 years. A lot of companies are starting to roll into. And I believe the roof pitch is about 7 to 10 degrees, and that's why our reasoning for not using the ballast mount systems.
Going, keep going, keep going, going. Yeah, the roof vents, those are about 16 inches. Keep going. The back of the home, you can see the opening there. Keep going. That vent, that 22, 23 inches. That's actually the front of the house is what you're looking at, and just along all the townhouses across view. So ahead.
Is that the primary elevation?
Yeah, go back. Yeah,
Is that the rear?
that was the front. What you were seeing, you're seeing the
So this
front.
one doesn't have a tall parapet like the previous application?
No.
It
No,
does.
not on the front. Yeah.
I mean, so they have a few different, like, you can see the one on the the very end there. Here. I mean, this one goes higher over here, right? But they have,
Not this, but your clients has about 4 or 6, I don't know.
yeah, that's where those pipes are. I have another picture to show you how high that is. Go ahead. That's the backside again. Go back. Oh. The reason I have the picture of these vents right here is to show you that these are 24 inches. And when you look at the front of the home, you can't see those, okay? And so our panels, again, 16 inches off the roof, you're not gonna be able to see those.
So it'll actually be lower with this
Yeah.
particular style system. Because they attach directly to the roof versus the ballast system, we choose the standoff size, which basically, so the front facing, south facing, which is the front of the house, the front of the panel would physically be facing. The tilt of that is going to be about 4 inches off the roof. So the edge of that panel actually sit maybe 2 to 3 inches off the roof, whereas the back side of it is going to sit up about 8 to 10 inches. So it'll be even lower. It'll definitely be lower than the vents. as well as because of the vents there. If you look at our plans, they're probably going to be seated back a little bit more. They're not going to be visible from the street.
Oh, and then
Seeing no members of the public that have comment on this, any other questions? Members on this one? That way I can say at least asked. Members of the public, not you. Mr.
Again, for your April presentation,
Sure.
in your first presentation tonight, you had tape measures against the parapets. We knew exactly how tall things were. You had a tape measure against the ballasted system to show us how tall that was, but you don't have it in this one.
Sure.
So for consistency in the future, always get a picture of the height of the the height of the parapet, the height of your product on the roof installed, things like that. So we have a record of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You very carefully verbally described it,
Mhm.
but to have that in writing as part of your presentation,
Yeah.
that would make it much more formal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, in terms of the fact that the street facing parapet on this house is much lower than the other houses. I went on Google Street View and I went as far down the side street as I could get and still see this facade, and you could not see the air conditioning equipment. And so these panels are actually below that. So I don't think visibility is an issue.
Correct. Yeah, I would assume so.
Comments, questions? And just for information, we gave variations to the parapets to create some vernacular, or some variation in the architecture on this when it went through.
It's your fault. Okay.
Look, I was one of many board members on this when we approved those. Anyway, so if there are no other comments, I would entertain a motion. Members?
I'll read it.
All right, Ms. Hemick.
Mr. Chairman, I move that ARB approve action item ARB-24-LOR-05 located at 8505 Reformatory Way, Thornton, tax map 1071 10B 0004 in the Lorton Laurel Hill MOA eligible area for the proposed installation of 15 roof-mounted solar panels, as submitted and presented at the March 18th, 2024 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of the memorandum of agreement of the Lorton Laurel Hill eligible district and zoning ordinance 3101 historic overlay districts.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Orr. All those in favor? Aye. Opposition? Extensions? All right, the motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll look forward to seeing you in April.
thank you.
You know what we'll be looking for.
Yep.
Take care.
Thank you.
All right. That takes us out of our items for action and brings us into our items for workshop. This one is ARB 24 LFK 02 WS 1100 Cambridge Road. This is in Langley Fork Historic Overlay District. The applicant is proposing demolition of an existing dwelling and construction of a two-story residence. Mr. Javoy represents this application.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Kayvan Jabori with KJ and Associates. Before I start, I wasn't disregarding, or I did not disregard the board's request for the architect to be present in our meetings because of the new construction especially. Unfortunately, he had an emergency surgery that came up. We considered not canceling this meeting, but because it was a workshop and the board had already looked at the material, we just wanted to make sure. I decided to be present here and hopefully he can come for the next month's meeting. We presented this, if I may ask, on this, I'm not sure if all the board members were here in July. We may have had some
New board members.
At least 2 members may be new. If they would like to go through the pictures of the site and all, I don't have any issues with that. It's your choice. Otherwise, it was.
I think if you give us an abbreviated walkthrough through them, and Ms. Mangum and Ms. Hemick are both completely
Sure, and
confident in
I've
asking
been-
questions.
I've been to the site, so I'm familiar with it.
Okay, so you're familiar with. Would you like need to go?
No, just
We're good.
abbreviated is fine.
So anyways, if I may ask you to go to slides 22 to 26, there are a few down the road. These are all the site pictures, existing conditions.
Is it 22?
So based on our last meeting and what the board accepted or suggested that we move forward with, we have these renderings with the brick facade on the building or, yeah. And this is the front of the house, which is facing Chainbridge Road. However, it won't be seen easily because of all the landscaping the developer does. Next, please. This is the right side, the garage doors with the windows as discussed, and we believe the board is accepting it the way you are. Next, please. This is the rear view with the gazebo and the pool. Next, please. And this is the left side view with the basement well and the stairway back to the pool deck. And then the gazebo is to the left beyond this picture. Next, please. This is the bird's eye view of the site. In the previous drawings, we had a double entrance. VDOT has become very adamant that they no longer allow two entrances. So we revised it to one single entrance. This location is almost precisely where the existing driveway entrance to the property is. And then we've created this turnaround at the end. Next, please. So based on our understanding of what the board wanted us to do, this is the front elevation of the house. Next, please. The garage elevation. Next, please. The rear. Next, please. And the left side, which this is the side to the 1102, the previous application we were here presenting to you, which is under construction right now. Next, please. These are the cross sections of the house. Next, please. Basement floor plan. Next, please. First floor plan. Next, please. And the second floor. Next, please. The gazebo we are showing here, this is with stone veneer. I have provided you with these, but we would like to have the gazebo also a brick, perhaps a different shade, but we can match the thing. And as we go through, can I ask you to go a few slides down? You get to a brick color because these are different views of the same thing. Okay, this is the color of the brick for the gazebo that we're considering to use. And then I have the architectural rendering next, please, of the gazebo with brick. We believe that this is a better match for the house than the stone veneer on the gazebo. But in our documents that we forwarded, we've shown the stone veneer, so we just included that in our presentation. Next, please. That's the right side elevation of the gazebo. Next, please. The rear of the gazebo. And the next. And this is the left side view of the elevation. Can we go to the next, please? Maybe that's it. So, any comments, any questions?
So last time this was here, and I think particularly for Ms. Mangum and Ms. Hammock's help, we had a workshop session held with yourself and your architect that was here. Principally, the conversation focused on primarily the main facade, but also we talked about the other facades as well, where some of the key things that were discussed in particular. And just to kind of give you both a little background, obviously a concern that most of the board members had is this lot's location is right on at an intersection of two different roads, one of which is right into the heart of the historic overlay district. So there was a lot of concern conveyed by board members about how this unit, how this proposed construction will fit in and work with. So that's kind of what the conversation was last time. And Mr. Mori indicated that they would come back with some revised drawings for us to look at and comment on at this meeting. So, but again, since we're in a workshop, you were getting general indications from what we felt comfortable with, but obviously an indication here is not doesn't guarantee an approval eventually. Obviously, it's just kind of trying to feel out where there are levels of discomfort or we think are not alignment here. Principally, that facade was the thing we talked the most about, if I remember correctly. Is that a fair?
Yes, yes.
Has
That's why we,
it been revised since?
Well, so that was going to be my question, because that looks very similar to what we talked about with the last time, the facade here.
my recollection is we presented to the board a few options.
Yes.
And this was the one that was chosen and agreed upon. So we moved forward with doing additional work, and the building plans are basically, for the most part, complete based on this. But we did not include that in this workshop because this is too early in our opinion to include all of that documentation in this workshop.
So what are the new things that from that facade, what new, other than I get the gazebo,
Yeah.
is a new conversation, can't miss it. But is it the other sides that we're talking about here? I just want to try and focus our.
We finalized all the,
I think we were kind of mixing and matching pictures, as we never saw a complete version of.
Windows from this.
Windows, we prefer the portico from
Yes.
there.
At least you're correct.
That's right.
Now, obviously, this is a workshop, so we don't have a set design yet. So Mr. Jawari was recognizing that he wanted to get something that was going to be, when he brought it to application, would be something we would be able to approve. So that's kind of this, we're having a focused, but I guess that for our sake, what particular parts did you want us to focus on today?
well, one of the items that was discussed, what is the other elevations for the house? Because
Okay.
last time we only had the front. Now we have all four sides, and then we have the renderings that show all four sides in color. Then in regards with the comment on how it's viewed, we showed you pictures and we can go back. Really, this property is not going to be, except for the upper levels of the house, is not going to be visible with the fencing that is along. Can I ask you to go back to like slides 5, go early on into the presentation? Okay. These are in Chainbridge Road, so that, as you see, these trees and all, you can't see the house from Chainbridge Road, nor can you see it from Georgetown Pike. Go ahead.
Oh, that's thanks to the trees. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, trees are not timeless creatures. And so it only takes one decision from an owner to remove them, and absolutely we can see it. And so I think in my mind, at least, that's what I'm trying to, when I think about what I would rather this designed house be, is something that, were those trees to not be there, it is something that is sympathetic to the district overall. I can't live with, I recognize that they're there now, but it also is in a place that,
There's going to be more of them.
That's exactly the first thing I wrote was landscaping is not a reasonable screen to a building. We want buildings that are objects in space that are in keeping with the historic district, the caliber of the historic homes adjacent, and we don't regulate landscape. Trees die, people cut down, also trees die, winter happens, and also nowhere in our bylines do we say appropriately screened from landscaping, not seen from the public right away. That's not a criteria that we use to assess appropriateness. So I just kind of want to remove it from the discussion, right? Like,
I appreciate your comment and your feedback, but this board has asked us before to provide a landscaping plan. But I'm not going to get into.
a landscaping plan is not justification for appropriateness of a design.
I understand that, ma'am. But, okay, let's keep the landscaping out of it. Are there any comments in regards with the facade of the structure?
I've already talked a good bit, so I've had more comments, but I would be happy for other members to share their thoughts too.
I want to hear from an architect professional.
Mr. Burns,
Okay. I would characterize this lot as one of the most sensitive lots in the historic overlay district. It is centrally located. It's at the most prominent intersection in the most of the contributing structures are within yards of this property. And my concern, and I showed Gabriella's concern, is that this has to be able to relate to the character of the historic district, right? And it needs to be able to do that without the crutch of landscape screening so that you can't see it. I totally agree with her assessment that it needs to stand on its own. And so you've got a conventional looking sort of colonial facade on the front face of the building, but the face of the building that faces the most historic part of the historic district is garage doors and an agglomeration of, can you go to that one? Side rendering, garage
The
rendering?
next one after that. There we go.
Yeah, there you go. That's what faces the historic properties across the street from it. And I don't see a lot of relationship in its massing, its materials that relate to what it is adjacent to, which is part of what it should be is compatible with. And I don't see a whole lot of compatibility there. That's my primary concern. Yeah, no, the side street facade is, the front, as it were, but it's that side that faces the heart of the district is the one that I don't see any compatibility at all, really. So I don't know how you resolve that, but that's the materiality of it is different. The massing is different. The sheer size of it is different. And so how can you look at the guidelines for this district and say that this is what is being proposed here is compatible with that? I mean, if I say, how is this compatible with what's across the street? What is your answer to that?
We tried to mimic this structure very similar to the Kennedy's property. We believe that was what we used as an example to come up with this architecture for this building. If you believe that this view is not compatible with the historic district, the windows seem to be in line with it. Are the garage doors the issue? Are you, yes, ma'am.
The masonry to void ratio. First of all, this elevation is much better than the other secondary elevation. The west elevation, I know you own the building that faces that, but I would be really angry if that was going up visible from my bedroom, because that's not even a design. That's not a design facade. Like, these homes in the historic district, every single facade has a thoughtful design a fenestration pattern that relates to the other elevations. That is not, that's the inside of a building. To me, it looks like I can just see the plan of what's going on the inside of that building. No thought has been given to the outside design on this elevation. And on the other one, the ratio to void and masonry is not in keeping. You need to study the historic buildings, the dimensions, because that is what visually is not in keeping. And also, is that a roof over light fixtures?
That is an awning on that, yes.
I can think of no historic precedent for an awning over light fixtures. Looks very awkward.
There's
I
a
also-
doorway there. It's-
Oh, there's a door.
There is a door.
Okay.
There are lights on it. No, we're not just showing lights on the wall. No, there is a doorway.
So that's a roof, like an asphalt.
That goes to the garage.
Oh, okay, well, that makes more sense. What are your soffits on your roof? Is that the material around your eaves? What is that?
Yes.
What material is that?
I believe that is, it's either wood or,
If we don't have the answer now,
I think
we know if
that,
your
I
architect,
think
that's
that
okay.
detail could be refined, and it would be wonderful if it was in wood.
PVC, I'm sorry. It could be
And
PVC.
that's a lot of PVC, a lot of. That to me would
If-
catch my eye as something not in keeping with the character of the historic district. So I think the roof detail should be revisited. And maybe even the color, because that white PVC gets quite, it doesn't weather great. It's a really expensive home and surrounded by really beautiful. I know the area really well. My parents lived off Dolly Madison for 20 years. And I think you can do better. And I think that the site deserves better.
Mr. Zellman's got one. Got a guy. He's been asking.
Yeah, Mr. Jaboy, what I was going to say is that I think you've been here all night, so you've heard me talk about consistency is what I'm concerned about with this board and with other applicants. And unlike the other presentation, this property is in the heart of the historic district. It's not on the edge of it. So I think we are going to be a lot more strict, adhere more strictly to the guidelines of the historic district with this property. And so I would take Ms. Hammock's comments and other comments to heart that this property has to be more in line with what the overall historic district is looking to present, because it's not on the edge. It is, the historic structures are right across the street.
Quincy?
So I certainly concur. This is the most important property that's not resources. And just almost everything in the district core can view this face of this building. So I think this is the one that your architect's going to have to put the most effort in to craft. The scale of the house is much larger than any of the historical properties. So you can have a large scale elevation, but it's going to have some detail that helps personalize that scale or bring it in line with what you're doing. Right now, there's just too much wall, too much brick exposed, not enough to kind of break those planes apart. There's a lot more regular rhythm on this front elevation that's shown there, which it is pretty sparse also, but it's closer to the rhythm and the scale and the proportion that you want, but it still needs more attention, more detail. I think you need to ask your architect to study the buildings in the district and see what could be related to what he could pull from them and relate to them in order to give that something of a semblance of character of the district to the house. Defer to the district in some way with the house. I mean, this is a grand house, a grand scale house, and a very wealthy looking house, but that doesn't really address what's going on in the district. It addresses its neighbors further down to the left. But I think the detailing is going to be critical and the way to pull that scale down.
I personally would rather focus on the drawings than the renderings, because even if you take a look at the drawing, let's just take the rear elevation from the rendering, the spacing between the windows is different. So that's something I want to stick with what the plans are that are going to go to the builder. There's variation there between the rendering, and so, but the rendering does give me an idea of what could happen. And I do agree with Mr. Kalinsky. I think it's big still. The front facade, that we've really, I think we've got an idea there that this is something that does take some hints from the district as much as you can. But as everyone's brought up, that elevation facing the road, facing, you know, that's, you got the Langley Ordinary just down the road. You've got Scoville. I mean, you've got all these properties, and I recognize obviously that, you know, depending upon time of day, depending on what type of vegetation's there, maybe you won't see it, but if I assume you can, I want that dialogue to be there, that this was a well thought through structure that takes notes off of this. And I agree with Ms. Hammock. Right now, the void space on there, as well as the other elevation, I mean, I can tell you what walls beds are gonna be put on that one side, that's obvious. But this side too, there's just that second floor, it's just so much space going on there. And if there were a way to kind of break up that massing, even if it's through some lighter architectural details, just pull something, you know, this is 2 floors, not just one massive wall that we're looking at. That's, you know, some of my general reactions. I don't know if I love the idea of it being all brick either. It kind of like just really makes it feel very monolithic too. If a material change might be another way to find a way to kind of break it up a little bit as well, because it's so big. That's really going to stand out in my mind when it's constructed.
I think it,
Then I'll get you Ms. Orange.
oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead, Ms. Hammond. You were talking, I just saw him.
But I didn't raise my hand.
I only got eyes on
I
this so
think,
far.
I don't have a problem with the brick as much, but if you study an old brick building, the quality of,
Yeah, that's what I was gonna.
the headers have to go past the windows to be supported on the sides. And, you know, they will break up at the floor level. You'll be able to see where that floor level is. And if you'll study an older brick building, you're going to see detailing subtleties that will go a long way to do exactly what they're telling you to do here.
Well, yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
that's exactly what I was gonna say, like a corbel, a string course.
Yeah.
A keystone, a profiled brick molding instead of an overhanging plastic eave. But that all costs money, but I think that is worthy of this site. I think that your architect is limited in his vocabulary. That roof, you want to break up the roof, but you have this dinky front gable. How about some eyebrow dormers? I mean, there's a lot in the neighborhood visually, if you just do a windshield survey, that you could call on, that we could feel comfortable that it relates to the district and would help break up the massing. I also really feel uncomfortable referring to the pool house as a gazebo. A gazebo is like a garden structure that's open and not occupiable space. And I don't know how zoning reviews that pool structure, but in my mind, it's a secondary building on the site. It's enclosed. You can stand in it. You can be protected by weather. So I'm not going to refer to it as a gazebo. I actually think it's more interesting than the house at this point. I don't know.
It's a different vocabulary.
Yeah, it is, but I think
Modern.
it is modern,
also
but
big.
it's well designed.
Gigantic. It doesn't look at all like the house to me. I mean, it's like two different, it's very, 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 very tall. And it's up 6 feet.
Yeah, it's not a gazebo.
Right. I mean, it's because the platform that the pool is on, I know at that end is about 6 feet different than the grade. I mean, so it's up there.
And
And
if,
I ask you to go to the slides Go back, please, if you would, okay.
And it will get to the point I was about to make, which is all that will be very visible from Georgetown Pike as you come.
That facade is.
East. And I was gonna say the back facade of the house also is
Okay. the
critical.
Numbers, let me. see.
Because the way the lots.
20.
It's gonna be lit up. It's gonna be with exterior lighting and people living.
No, 25, no, that's the.
Well, we can't
first item.
regulate
That's-
interior light, but when you want that.
One more back, please.
These two together on the same lot belong to one owner.
That was the reason that we, although this is showing a stone veneer, we have leaned towards having a brick.
This is what you were mentioning. You wanted to propose the idea that it'd be a brick structure as opposed to what you're looking at now.
Exactly.
I will say, it's like the gazebo and the back of the structure have dialogue with each other, but they don't with the front. And that's, I think, what Ms. Hammock was getting at there. For this property, there really needs to be a dialogue for all elevations plus, any accessory structures. They have to talk together, because if you come by this, looking at it from this angle, it is a totally different house than what you have on the front. It
And
is-
that's not showing the grade properly, because you're gonna have to have handrail on that back and around the side, and that's, anyway, because I know we had that discussion from the last, or else you're having some sort of parapet type wall, which I think you showed us one time.
Are you?
Am I like talking the other?
We're talking the other,
Maybe I'm not-
we're talking about the other gazebo.
You're talking about, yes, the lot next to that.
Okay,
Just
I'm-
right next to
I'm sorry, I'm getting them confused.
It's okay.
I'm sorry.
No worries.
But it is, I mean, I was looking at the site, though, it drops off enough that you're gonna probably have to have a handrail around the backside. But anyway, that's not a here nor there, but,
Steve? I was going to say-
So
structure.
as an architect, I'd be super excited to take this on, but I'd be scared at the same time, because this is a bit of a conundrum. You want modern living, but it can't feel that modern and I think make it through the approval process here. So it's difficult, it's doable, but it's going to take some rethought of how things are laid out. I'm struggling with the automobiles on that side. Not saying it can't have it, but if you do have the cars, the garages on that face, they have to read more like a carriage house, maybe deeper recesses. There's got to be something done to kind of take away from the openings and the prominence. Right now, that's the portion of the facade that has the most character. I think you need to bring the whole thing up. It's a restudy. Unfortunately, I don't think what you have right here is going to work.
The interesting thing is, in your opinion, although you have pointed out some shortcomings, you're saying this is the most interesting view, but there are other board members who don't like this. They say it's too much void.
It's better than the other one, the primary elevation, because it has depth. It has more visual interest. I think that's what you're saying.
Well, I'm saying this needs to be the best detailed, most interesting elevation. It's not there right now. I think you're fighting the scale of the house, but things can be done at large scale that have that interest and that detail. And really the arrangement of the windows, the detailing on the brick, whether there's more felt coursing or all those things. There's many different ways to slice it. I mean, you could go in a particular architectural style, like a neo-colonial. I mean, there are different ways to do it. This style is characterized maybe as transitional, but it's not the right style for
Okay.
for the,
Part of it is too, that it's a some of these things are magnifying details of the HOD in itself. Like if you go to the existing guidelines that we have, it talks about, you know, and Mr. Sullivan's looking at them too, what the elements are. We have clapboard covered or, you know, or painted brick, you know, we've got white and warm creams as dominant colors. You have some of those things there, but the problem is the scale of the structure is taking them to a proportionality that unless they're treated in a certain way, they're going to look abnormal. They're not going to look as appropriate. And so I think when we worked with you on the front facade, part of it was, okay, how can we get to something that could be, you know, workable with the massing you had going there? The same thing has to happen on this side, and it has to happen on the rear, it has to happen on the other side. We have to kind of you have to go through each of those and try to kind of take those features in here and look at what guidelines we do have on it and kind of have your architect play with those ideas, because I see some of that in there and some of that's reflecting from the last workshop. And, you know, I think I agree with Mr. Kalinsky. It's a challenge, but it could be done, you know, but right now there's at least 2 facades that aren't talking to each other, given the recreational kind of modern side on the back with the more traditional looking main facade or front facade.
For me, I would love to see your windows not black. I think that it's not a historic palette to have black windows against a buff brick. I know it's very trendy and very modern, but your windows become visually just voids. And the great thing about Muttons is that it gives visual interest. It helps create texture. And when your window is black, the Muttons, the grid pattern becomes mute. And I also think that your architect shouldn't move past a rectangle. You can have a large span of glass with masonry piers, with transoms, with a double hung next to 2 awnings. It doesn't all have to be a double hung window. It's like with a house of this importance, and then you only have primary color crayons, and you need to work with the 100 pack of crayons to get it up to a level that is appropriate.
Okay. On the gazebo side, the other one, I think, when we talk about all other types of structures here, subsidiaries, buildings, structures, garage should be small background buildings. Right now, the gazebo doesn't feel like a background building.
No.
It's not a gazebo.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
With all due respect, if I can kindly ask you, just Google a gazebo.
I did.
Okay, a bunch of these
Definition.
views come up.
A roof structure that offers an open view of the surrounding area, typically used for relaxation or entertainment. And all the pictures are like the type of gazebo you would see in a park with lattice work, open with benches or swings.
The pool house.
But it's a second, it's a
Regardless, it
It's an
is,
accessory
it
structure.
is accessory
I
structure.
mean, that's how zoning is
Yeah.
gonna look at it,
Yeah.
okay? Because the
Accessory.
gazebo is not occupiable space. It's a garden feature. So,
And
anyway.
it's too tall. It's too tall.
So, I mean, I guess the question would be, what was the inspiration for the design? Was it, I mean, I mean, it's an interesting design for a structure. Don't get me wrong, but it, you know, we've seen, like, I'm thinking of the solarium at the Huntley Meadows, I think, or there were several other structures we've seen them do accessory structures that, you know, there's an idea that kind of has a format in their eye. Maybe they took the traditional gazebo that you picture in a park, and they're like, okay, but we're making it bigger. It is going to be an accessory structure that's going to have occupiable space and emitters. So how could we morph that into something more grand? That's, you know, I see a totally different building back there compared to the front structure. It just, at this point, and it's like, either we need to change that I would recommend changing it dramatically to something more sentimental to the main structure, or you gotta go, it just, they don't work right now in my mind. Not, I don't, and I'm not the architect, I just.
Well, as an architect, I'm okay with a folly structure, but it can't be as large in scale as this is. This 18-foot tall to the front too big for a folly structure. So if it is going to be something that scale, I think it has to more clearly match the architecture of the house.
Again, I would ask the same question I asked on the garage facade is, can you tell me how this is compatible with the historic structures that are across the street from it?
I will relay your comments to the architect. Maybe we gotta change architects, I don't know.
Just a question about the process of this design and such. Is this being designed for a known client? Or is this?
No, not at this house.
This is a spec house.
Yes.
Okay, so at some point, the client's going to come in and say, well, I want this changed, I want that changed, I want the other thing changed. I mean, does that come back to us? I mean, how?
It should.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, but I'm saying, so all that we're talking about here could all become void.
That's only if
Owner wants to spend.
it's only if somebody buys in at point before it's built and they
Yeah,
given the opportunity to make changes.
right. So that's
If the design is set and mandated.
where the sale to a new owner comes dictates whether the degree of change that an owner might be able to influence on the property.
Yeah.
So that's, I don't know how these kinds of things.
Then I think you're in a better opportunity then, because if you can design a house that fits really well in what is a very exclusive historic overlay, it is a really nice, it's got some amazing properties in it. It's got an amazing kids park. So if this person hopefully has kids, the playground right there is fantastic. Whether or not you like the design of the playground, that's a whole nother thing, but
Traffic.
yes, traffic is one thing, but that's, look, this person's they're not commuting, they're working from home. That's
Clement John
obvious.
Tree, the park for children with easy accessible park down the street.
Where the school is?
There's a playground right down the road called Clement John Tree.
Yeah, a woman left her home and to the Fairfax County with the condition, everyone knows this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, you probably reviewed it.
Oh, it's not.
No, it's just
Not in the
outside of it.
district.
Anyway,
But
yeah.
there's a chance for you to design a home that's really compatible to this district. And I think that could be a selling point to it, to a potential buyer of, this home really takes notes from this district and this place it's in. And particularly, you've got the prominent property like Langley Ordinary. But we've done so many additions on the rear of that property, but there's so many ideas to take off that.
Mr. Jabouri, may I suggest that you go look at some of the other properties further down on, what's the name of that street right there?
So this one right here, I'm not sure what that cul-de-sac one is.
Well, directly across the street,
On Georgetown Pike?
no, not on Georgetown Pike, but
Oak Hill Lane, where the house with the.
yeah, Doug Hill Lane, that's it.
Doug Hill
Go
Lane,
down
thank
Doug Hill Lane and look at some of those homes.
Oh, wow.
They've,
That's hilarious.
they're the kind of the quality of house that I think you could put here that would be successful.
Not the other road, though. There's the other road right next to it. That's got some,
No,
That's good.
Doug Hill Lane.
yeah, Doug Hill Lane.
Because that's got the nice sort of garden room. It's round in the backyard. It's connected, but it really is quite elegant.
So if you go down Doug Hill Lane, it ends in a cul-de-sac. Straight ahead, there's a home which is very appropriate to the district.
That's
That
what I
might be
was
an
thinking of. That was the
inspiration.
one I was thinking of, that had the solarium, wasn't it?
Yeah, and they added the
Yes,
solarium
yes,
in the back, and they annexed the property behind.
Yes, that's,
Outside
okay.
of the
Yeah.
district.
Yes, I absolutely agree with Ms. Kwinsky that, and their architects worked a lot to try to get something that, even though it's not in the main thoroughfare, I think had that level of
Oh, God.
opulence that they were aiming for, but not,
Fair enough, we'll do. No problem.
okay.
So, are we leaning towards another workshop?
Yeah.
I think we would really hope that you would come back for another workshop, particularly once your architect, hopefully he is recovered well, or any other architect or teams of architects, whoever you want to bring, but with that feedback in hand, I think that would be better than coming in for an application.
I think bringing photographs of adjacent properties and building an argument to present to us why it's appropriate with visual justification would be really, really great. It'd be helpful for us, and I think it'd be helpful for you.
I appreciate your comments and we're gonna adhere to it. But those compatible pictures are typically when it's a contributing property.
No, it's not. New construction needs to be appropriate with the historic district, and I completely disagree.
I think what Ms. Hammock's getting at is we're talking about compatibility. We're not talking about replication. And so you can have something that is compatible and has calls to the historic structures without being a false historic. So you're building a replica house that's just pretending to be historic. And so there should be some kind of dialogue between those structures that you're pulling elements from. But what you're asking for particularly is show us where what you're proposing takes from some of those existing structures and takes notes from them. If I'm understanding you
No,
correctly,
you're
I want
right,
to
you're
make
right,
sure.
because you're not going to be, I mean, you're going to be walking and driving down the street viewing this building in the context of the streetscape.
All right. I appreciate you coming out.
No problem.
And I appreciate you accommodating the alternate meeting date and offering to come to
No
this.
problem. No problem. My pleasure. Can I get the transfer?
Would you review that one?
Thank you very much.
And it's also.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Jabori. That is our last workshop session. Takes us on to board and staff items. Okay, Summarization correctly.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
There's a dialogue.
Really complicated site.
Let's have a pick, somebody
And
try.
I mean,
So you can look.
architects, it is challenging, but I don't think that there's not an architect out there that can meet it. And maybe it's not his architect.
Do you feel it's get worse than last time?
But we are out of workshop session, I would point out, and we are on a recorded meeting.
Okay.
I would point out we have the three best architects we could possibly ask for.
But it's not our job to design these for these
Yes.
people. We don't get,
No, we don't.
okay? And no one, I don't mean to be rude, but like, no one forced him to purchase this site in a historic district. He had all the information. He's worked with us before. All his decisions are cheap out. All his design decisions are to save money, okay? And sorry,
That's why we're having the workshop session. Instead of-
yes, but I don't feel like he doesn't like working with us.
And the owner of his construction company, ultimate owner, is going to do whatever he
Yeah.
wants to anyway.
I'm gonna remind you
Well, yeah.
all, we are at a recorded
I think
meeting.
that's the safe thing to say.
I
There's
understand.
a history on Turkey Run Road.
Well,
We're not in an item for this agenda.
anyway,
We are
well,
off agenda.
hopefully he
what's
has a
next
good
on the
direction.
agenda?
Yes. All valid feelings are appreciated, but I want to keep us on agenda so that we can try to not make you endure too many double back meetings like this. So administrative, there are none because you did them last time. Great. Thanks, Mr. Delman. Discussion, updates, reports. There aren't appear to be any more. Are there any updates beyond those, Daniel, or is there none at this moment? All right. Correspondence and announcements. All right, introduce monthly DPD Heritage Resources branch update.
Yes, so starting next month, you will receive an update from our branch 2 weeks before the meeting. At the same time, you get the draft agenda and the applications for action. It's going to be organized in the 4 categories that are on the screen, starting with ongoing projects, then updates on development review, permit review, and then administrative items. So the next month's, the ongoing projects will include some of the surveys that have been going on for the past few years, as well as that update on the VDHR grant cycle that we kind of talked about last week. Development review is where we will brief you on our current review on zoning applications, comprehensive plan amendments, or site-specific plan amendments, or when we've been pulled into interjurisdictional or section 106 reviews. For permit review, when I checked this at the beginning of the month, we had already reviewed 66 permits and HODs or inventory sites this year, so in 2 months. A majority of those are related to past ARB approvals, which then they're coming in for a conformance check. So our staff is ensuring that what is coming in for the building permit substantially conforms to what the ARB approved. Or when there are instances that are allowable under the zoning ordinance, we do an administrative approval, so it does not have to actually come to the ARB. Then the last section of this report will just include the financial statement, which is in the agenda. Any updates, like I'm sure I will have another one on Cohen Church next month, and random correspondence. So the goal of this is just to give you all a more informed update on what our staff is doing day to day and work that's informing the board. So I'll distribute that 2 weeks ahead and then have a few high-level things on the agenda like I normally do. But if you have any questions, we can pull it off into a discussion. Any questions about that?
Oh, Mr. Burns.
You used a phrase that caught my ear, and that you said the conformance check is for substantial compliance with what was approved. What does substantial compliance mean?
It is a moving target.
Well, I want to know.
So we, let's see. Let me think of a recent one that I had come back. There
Who is
were
the judge of substantial compliance? The code official? This it's
staff, me,
Staff,
the administrator.
okay,
Yeah, so
you
it goes
guys.
through- yeah, it starts, works its way up the chain, and then so we, the term in the zoning ordinance is substantial conformance, and so what we're looking for is, that, but that's with the understanding that when we get to the permit plan set, there might be like changes that are happening, to accommodate for construction or site conditions. So we, look at if the design that is presented on the permit plans is aligned with what was presented to the board. That's where we're also looking for modifications that are passed in motions to make sure that those are included. And if it's not, I kick it back. Either have to update the plan set or come back to the ARB for a modification. So our kind of like operating level is if there's like above 2 significant changes. So like if a window is changed to a door or a window is moved, that's enough for us to have a problem with it moving forward in the permit. So we flag it, talk to the permit. It's usually a permit processor, so it takes a little bit to get to the applicant. But for the most part, what we're seeing in the permit application is matching what it is approving.
Yeah, that's what I would hope. But you mentioned that we've had 60 permit reviews.
That includes any, the way Plus is set up, the code is set up, so any permit that has a heritage resources flag comes to us. That includes inventory sites. That includes all permits and HODs. So that's interior, which the ARB does not have purview over. So those are usually, we are just processing it and moving it along. So it's not truly 66 that the ARB has been involved in.
Yeah. But my point is that in recent years, staff inspection for substantial conformance has not been taking place. So that's a new workload that you guys are assuming, which is not insubstantial.
No, and that is increased since I started because of all the mechanical trades permits that are now coming through.
Yeah. Okay. So
So
that's
that fixed.
just, I want you to know that we're aware that that is a substantial increase in workload that you guys are under, and that we should.
Who do we have to talk to about a raise?
Another
No,
person.
but
More
also,
staff.
as people's permits get delayed because of staff, like it's a cycle. People become anti-historic district because they feel their permits are taking longer because they have this heritage flag.
You turn permits around in a day or two.
No, I'm not saying, this is like pipeline, like if
Right.
we keep designating and don't add staff, then the logical point is that things will
Oh.
take longer.
Yeah.
So this is a problem for Fairfax, just to think
At one point, we were at 1.
long-term planning. But no, that's great. I'm sure you do.
Oh,
That was
So
no issue with you.
we're typically one of 5 or
Probably
6
faster than
review
others.
disciplines. And so we get it when it comes to everyone. We also see a lot of things that are not actually meant for us, but we still
Do you have
review
the
it.
interior plans with exterior work tacked on? That's
Yes.
all that, yeah.
So,
Is
for
that
example,
Lake Ann thing slipped through?
that was pre-mechanical fix. So there, there was an update and plus that went into effect at the beginning of February. That the notice that is supposed to trigger the review coordinator to include us is now appearing on all mechanical trades permits. So that's mechanical, electrical, and plumbing for commercial. That was not previously happening. So that's how Lake Ann slipped through because there was no signal for someone to flag it for Heritage Resources. Now they are all showing up with the same flag at the top that gets everything. So that is why,
Creating a lot of work for you because you're reviewing a lot of things that have no exteriors.
yes.
At least it's a benefit for us because we're catching.
Yeah, because sometimes they put
Yeah.
a vent, it's like a
Yeah.
vent through the front of the building. It's all interior mechanical work.
The P5 that came in last week is an example of that. The way the permit was treated, it was almost all interior, but there were several exterior components. And so we flagged it several months ago, and then it worked through to come to the ARB.
At one point, we were literally operating with a staff of one for the longest time. And so many members as well as other folks, there was a lot of saber rattling that got more position funding. And then we had folks go on to better jobs and we lost a lot of staff again. We had to refill it. So that's one of the challenges is also Fairfax is not competitive enough to keep the talent we
You
have.
need the institutional knowledge of how to do all these systems. You know, even if you get a great new hire, it's going to take a couple months for them to figure out how to do the permit review. Don't go anywhere.
Oh, but this is great. This is a update that I think will be really helpful to hear about. We get it.
And so just a reminder, because that update is in place and plus, you will continue to see mechanical trade permits as needed. Our current plan is if it is very minor work on non-contributing buildings that are not visible from contributing structures, the sort of thing that we could administratively approve. We're not going to send someone for an antenna on the roof that is being, that sort of thing. It's all changing because the hole just opened. And I don't know how many will rush through. So
You mean the louver's open, the
Yeah.
vent is open.
yes. So this will come out every month and then we can, anything that you want to pull. Yeah.
Okay. Updates on design guidelines.
Yes, so we had a meeting with Traceries, EHT Traceries, the consultant at the end of February, turned over all of our comments. The targeted deadline for them giving us updated drafts is the end of April 26th, which was a Friday. And we're actively planning out the public meeting schedules. That will take a lot of collaboration with various supervisor staffs, our internal team, all of that. And that is not something that we're anticipating ARB attending every meeting. If you would like to, you can. They will be spaced out throughout the county. I will give dates when I know, but we're targeting late spring, early summer at this point. So the timeline for the next part of that process is we'll have revised drafts from Traceries. Those will be publicly available through public input, which is the county's commenting system. We'll hold public meetings and have an extended period for people to provide feedback on the guidelines. Unlike Holland Hills and Wellington at River Farm, we are not asking if people want to be in an HOD or how they feel about HODs. We're talking about.
You're in an
You were in
HOD.
one.
You're already there. Yes, we're talking about how usable the documents are. If there are critiques to that sort of.
This is helpful for your future project.
Yes, or that you come away with more questions than answer, that sort of thing. So that is the survey that we're setting up. The part of this, because it's been a while since our branch has done like a mailer to all residents in HODs, those will go to all 15 HODs plus Lorton, because Lorton is subject to the overall document, which will be introduced. So I really have no way to even gauge how many people will attend meetings or provide feedback, but we will send a mailer to every property address in an HOD. The one change that we sort of requested from Traceries, which they're still working through, is in the overall document, the addition of a new chapter, which is based on the chapter 4 in Holland Hills and Wellington River Farm guidelines, which were much more robust, I think is a good word, instead of the 13 district-specific drafts talking, and it grouped projects by compatibility, so in terms of new construction, preservation, or like site design, topography, and archaeology. So that we pulled those two documents, went through all 13 drafts, went through all guiding documents that are currently adopted, and gave them a new chapter that we want added. That's also covering things like solar panels, because those are not covered anywhere in the 13 drafts or the overall document. And that is a recurring application type and topic of discussion. And sustainability. So those sorts of things we've asked them to add. We'll see what they come back with. But everything that we asked them to add is based on the way they wrote guidelines at Holland Hills and Wellington. So our goal with that new chapter being added to the overall document is it's more cohesive, helps us.
So Jason, more consistency.
Yes, consistency. It will aid us with Lorton as that continues to be under ARB. And also just in the future with any other HODs that are added. There, just as a refresher, that public input section, will be the chance to provide comment for other updates before those come to the ARB for adoption.
So you'll let us know when that comes live on the site.
Yes, yep. We're starting to, it's probably going to be 6 weeks or so because we have to do a lot of front end build out to get it ready.
I would obviously encourage any ARB member that can make it to any of those meetings, please do, because that's where we're going to hear some of the feedback. And obviously I know staff will prepare stuff for us to synthesize that, but it's always nice to have some representation at those meetings.
Would you want us to sit, like, be with you during those meetings or just be a member of the audience? Like,
I don't have an answer to that because I haven't even there to think that far.
It's going to be markedly different, obviously, than the HOD ones we did, like the Holland Hills or the Homes Run Acres ones, because in those you had folks getting to have to accept the reality of, do you want to be in an HOD? Whereas this is a different audience, like you pointed out, Daniel, that you are in an HOD. Are these documents helpful to you to understand that? Because the HOD fact is not changing.
Right.
I know John will be there, waving his fist in the meeting. I never asked for this. But yeah, I think when I was at those,
There's going to be more than one district at a meeting too.
yeah, but I do think when you host one up towards Lake Ann, you're going to get a crowd from the Lake Ann folks.
We're planning for Lake Ann to have its own meeting.
No surprise.
Some of the smaller, like Langley Fork, Drainsville Tavern, Run Hill would be grouped together.
You might.
and so,
But then the goal of that is also every meeting is open to anyone who lives in an HOD or has an interest. It's not.
I think it's the same with the Lorton area one. You could have a pretty decent amount of potential attendees who, that's a new collection of people who live in an HOD, technically, MOA area.
I
But
have a question.
Yes.
And do they talk in there about how we are to address non-conforming structures? How we're to view them and they come in and evaluate them and to give those people a guide of what we're expecting of them, for us.
Non-contributing or non-conforming?
Non-contributing. Thank you.
There is a level of that in all of the district-specific drafts, and then that is enhanced in the chapter that we're proposing be inserted into the overall. There's different levels based on contributing properties, or even historic, non-historic. So there's a lot of focus on non-contributing or non-historic properties being deferential in scale or setback, that sort of thing. So that's kind of what we've focused on. And then the guiding document is the SOI standards, so that you can always defer to because the zoning ordinance allows that.
I do venture we might have to be prepared to field some of those types of questions. So I think you're going to get some folks who might, hey, I'm in this and I've never asked the question and I want to do something and we're going to get some hypotheticals. So I think that's something that the county staff needs to be ready for. How are you going to answer the hypothetical from someone who's like, I'm in this HOD and let me tell you what I heard, or, you know, I think that obviously we've got time to plan for that, but that is something that I think
In terms of,
hope you guys are working on.
yes, just in terms of the meeting, we are intending to be very directed on, it's not a free forum for.
Airing of grievances.
The other thing is, and I'm just,
If I'm ever asked a hypothetical, come to a workshop. That's
your predecessor who had to host some of these, I think they threw her in front of the room sometimes unfairly.
right.
So if the more you can bring some helpful facilitation meeting staff who know what we do, though, that was the other thing. There were sometimes folks that were at those meetings, even a supervisor who clearly had no idea about what a HOD meant, even though they were talking about it. And so that that's my concern for your sake, Daniel, because you're going to be at them.
I wish that there was legal counsel at all these meetings. No, really, like the
I'm
landmark.
sitting right here.
No, wait, no.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Because like Landmarks
I know
had
what
a
you mean.
full time, 2 employees. And I've been to these meetings, when they get ugly, they can reel it in and be like, you know, not only is this not up for discussion, like you do in our meetings, which is so helpful.
I don't think Fairfax County has lawyers who are skilled in that direction.
They have land use lawyers, but
Yes, but
they wouldn't give them to us for these meetings, I'm sure.
having the History Commission deals with them quite a bit, and preservation is not their thing.
I have faith in Daniel that you
Yeah.
can steer it, you know, shut it
I
down.
want you supported though.
I hear and appreciate all the concerns. We are quite honestly not anticipating a ton of feedback based on the public attendance at these meetings, but we never know. So it's good
We
to,
can't get drinks afterwards, and it's a meeting.
so tandem on that is that we are, the staff reports, I mentioned this last week, but will be coming much sooner than the guidelines for adoption. The Holland Hills templates are working their way through review, and then we'll do a couple pilot test cases, and then those will be, or Wellington, but we don't usually see Wellington. So Holland Hills or Wellington or River Farm will have templates ready for use in as soon as a few months.
Okay.
Excellent.
And the submission matrix will also be live on our website, so that will hopefully temper some of the inconsistencies with applications.
There hasn't been a new DPD or DPD branch chief hired yet, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I know that was still outstanding too. I think that's an opportunity as well for us to help get your support there, Daniel, and that is the more we can infiltrate them when they come into that position. All right, any other items?
I do not have anything else.
John, I want to thank you for sharing that presentation. I don't know if you shared it with Elise too, or for Richard Bierce's, okay. Wasn't sure if you were on that or not, but.
No,
I'll just say a couple things. There was a memorial reception for Richard Bierce at Gadsby's Tavern Museum on Saturday night. Elise and I, primarily Elise, gathered up all of the quotes of the month that he had given us over the years.
well,
We've,
the ones that were in storage or hadn't been given, yeah,
yeah, the ones that we could find, yes.
easily.
And we scanned them and then printed it out, and I gave a little binder of them to the family. And then it said, quotes of the month compiled by Richard Bierce for the Fairfax County Architecture Review Board. So I gave it to them. And they were very appreciative of that. And then ARB representation there, Bob Mobley was there. And he spoke about how he was appointed to the ARB. Right, didn't really know anything about historic buildings, and everything he learned about historic buildings, he learned from Richard, sitting next to him. Those of us who remember that those guys were like best buds.
Why I was.
That's kind of interesting because Bob served many years before the period that Bob served twice.
Oh, okay.
So I'm wondering about Bob's first.
I was holding the,
Whatever, that's the story he told.
when he and, when Richard and Bob did the guidelines, they did these work sessions with us to
Yeah.
help get to the guidelines we have now that we're about to move forward with. They held these work sessions where we had kind of a retreat.
Yeah.
And the two of them were like simpatico on this about each one, the architect, the other, Richard, the preservationist. And it was, you know, they were so passionate about seeing this completed. So
Yeah.
I'm glad.
That was nice. And then Linda Blank was there.
Oh, no.
Yes, I hadn't seen her in a while, even though she lives like a mile from me. She was Daniel years ago. It was
She
a
was
very nice
by
event.
herself years ago.
Yes.
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 I'm glad we had you all there. I was not gonna bring pink eye to that, so that wasn't gonna happen. I don't have it. I didn't get it. I didn't get it.
It depends, it's everywhere.
Steve pushed pretty far back.
Yeah. He's got kids. He's like, oh, I've been there. All right. Well, any other announcements? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, it's always in order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So it is.
I think we'll have 2 meetings in April.